We've been working on WRPI. It's a replacement for the radio station's website. Original one was written in PHP, simple MySQL backend. Unfortunately, it was implemented without using any foreign keys, and it was all done in PHP, and it's a nightmare. So I know you're not supposed to go and rewrite code because it's been tested, but this was so bad, it was just like it's been hacked together, so we decided to redo it. So I'm Nicholas Pitt, this is Dennis Conley, and Andrew Thompson. Right. Okay, so real quick, why frameworks? Kind of streamlines your workflow, and it's easier to use one that's already there than trying to come up with your own MVC and have someone else try to understand that. It's also good if someone else comes along and happens to know Django, they instantly know the setup of your site, taking it's about the same version of Django. Ease of database handling. Cool stuff that frameworks do. Django presents you with a class that you can call save on, you can create a new object, and that all handles the SQL on the back end. You don't have to write a single statement of SQL. It's a little scary, but it's kind of cool when you get used to it. And it's an interesting workflow. So candidates were PHP, Ruby, or Django. And I don't know if anyone's seen this, it's kind of funny. There's one of the reasons I didn't use PHP, because I've used it a lot and it's kind of weird. This one, there's actually a loop in the inequality graph of PHP. So everything going down is using the greater than equal operator, greater than the thing before it. And there's actually a loop in the graph, which is really dumb. So if you actually put like a null, array, infinity, and like 0, 1 tuple or whatever into an array and call sort on it, it just won't sort. It's kind of interesting. Anyway, all right, so as a suggestion I got was to go with Django, and thought, well, no, why not? Python's fun, it's easy to learn, and the whole point of this project was to make it something that was easily maintainable, because what was there was not easily maintainable at all. All right. MVC architecture. We wanted to do something that was broken out into, you have your things that interact with the database over here, you have your things that interact with the front end, the code that does that, and then you have the HTML and JavaScript that presents it to the user. Django does that for you. It gives you a pretty nice MVC with HTML templates, database models, stuff like that. It's also modular. So the whole point of this was to come out with a sub-application that we could redistribute and could be used in multiple projects. Originally, I was thinking that was going to be a members area sort of app that you could just plug in and configure with whatever settings you want. Turns out that our members area that we needed is kind of specialized in that regard, and wouldn't be very modular, wouldn't translate well to other projects. But what we did end up coming out of this with is a kind of email registration. I know there's already Django email registration. The problem with that, though, is that it screws up the admin site for Django terribly. So we've been working with the admin site to actually get the admin site that Django provides usable by club officers and stuff like that. All right, so here's the thing. Django loves usernames. And the current setup that we'd like to implement, or the current setup we have, only uses emails, and I don't really see a reason why we need usernames at all. Unfortunately, Django doesn't have an option to use emails instead of usernames. They require usernames to be inputted when you create super users, create users, stuff like that. There's no option to authenticate via email addresses. There's no option to make email addresses unique. So I looked at the observatory code, and I was talking with Colin for a bit. The thing to do is to hash the email addresses and use them as usernames, which works. It's kind of terrible. But so the question is, you're thinking, like, why couldn't you just use the email address as the username in the username field and just like do it that way? You call it a username, but it's really your email. Problem is that the default field length for your username is 30 characters, and the default for your email is 75. I know plenty of people that have email addresses that are more than 30 characters. And I'd like this to be used, the whole point was this to be used on a default Django setup. You just plug it in and it runs. So that, you have to go on and change the database length for that field, and that would kind of be a pain. So we ended up doing that, but in a way that wasn't quite as silly as some of the other ways I saw. We ended up base 64 encoding an SHA-1 hash of your email, and then not using that at all in the admin interface, writing a whole new auth backend that did email authentication. Also checked the emails were unique, and stuff like that. That's all part of the admin site hacks. Members area. At the radio station, we have a bunch of requirements that are, you need to become a member and become a DJ. So obviously the ones for a DJ are larger than the ones for a member. So it's like 7 work hours, well 2 to be a member and 7 to actually be a DJ. You have to have 3 classes, 3 shows, 2 shadows, and there's different show requirements. It could be scheduled, it could be shadowable. Not all shows are shadowable. And you kind of have to come up with a way of passing these all to the template in a way that the template can say, okay, if member, then show this. If not member, show that. Stuff like that. That's been done. The layouts I've been kind of screwing with. We originally had it all as one page that you could click and it would kind of accordion the different fields. It kind of got clunky, so I ended up copying the Django RPI, which is the admin site interface for that. Still working on the whole adding shows from user accounts. And public area, the schedule is rough. It's just an HTML table and it inserts blocks for people's shows. You can have shows that span multiple rows or columns for different days. That was a problem with the old system. If you wanted a show that would go from, let's say, 2 in the morning till 7 o'clock in the morning, that would roll over our schedule and you have to submit 2 different show applications. And it was really long. So this, you can submit that. And, what we still need to do, finish reconstructing the members area with this new format, ability to post minutes from meetings, and the public area, we still need to do all the HTML for the static pages, the welcome page, the rest of the HTML around the static page, the schedule page, and the officer page and info pages. And the current way it's set up is very fragmented. We have like 3 different servers that end up serving 3 different subdomains we have, and they're all in different places, and it's really awful. So the idea would be to put this all in one place, on one server, and just do it that way. All right. Let's hope this works. All right. So this was originally in blue. WRPI's colors are black and red. So Dennis's suggestion was to go through and make it red, which was actually a real pain in the butt. Because you had to change all the CSS files and the logos. So it asks you for an email address and a password instead of your username. Logs you in. Some things we changed around. User settings. If you click user settings, it takes you to your page. It doesn't ask you for a username at all. You get first name, last name, email address. If you change the email address, it automatically updates the hash and background and hit submit and all that. RIN is optional because we have community members that don't have RINs. Active status, groups you can do. Groups I'm thinking you can do for, it'd be good for different officers. You just give them group permission to either add shows if they're the PD or okay, so kind of neat things you can do. Let's say you want to add a shadow. All right. Search for member. You can search for the member user. This did work in Django 1.5. When you clicked on the name, it would automatically insert the ID. We upgraded to Django 1.6, and that kind of broke this for whatever reason. But so that would be ID 1. The show would be, you can add a show if it's not there. Show in this case is 1, date, today, I got approved. And it adds it. So the admin site, the idea is that the officers go directly to the admin site and do that. There's also, the members area login, that's the same sort of thing. And it shows you how long your membership is. When it expires, that was also a thing that people were, community members would let their membership expire because they didn't know when it expired, and then all of a sudden it'd be on a show and it'd be a huge administrative mess. Sort of statuses, membership, clearance, hosting. Idea being you can click on one of these and give you a listing of all the current, I guess, all of your documentation, admin and stuff like that. The schedule, it still needs more CSS work. Is this, it's pretty straightforward at the moment. It just pops them into a HTML table so you can start to see what it adds. PD can just click schedule, don't schedule, stuff like that, and pop them on the schedule. Before this had all to be done manually. That's where we're at so far. All right. This was all being run on a RAID 10 array. The RAID 10 controller, I went to update Flash on it and it bricked itself. So we're now using ZFS, which is kind of another project that could be done for next year. There's kind of a swap paradox currently with ZFS. If you have swap on ZFS and you go to write, because your system runs out of memory, you go to write to swap, and ZFS tries to buffer that in memory, which it doesn't have, and it deadlocks. There's a whole bunch of, I went through all the GitHub comments on people saying this is broken. They went through and tried to fix a bunch of stuff, but it's broken on 3.11. A couple different variables you can try screwing around with. The minimum 3 kilobytes that Linux reserves before swapping out. Disabling write buffering. Reducing the caching ZFS does, and none of it works. So it's clearly something else that's broken. Either way, it'd be a good project to contribute to. And this is also, it's applicable because our new setup for radio station is going to be on ZFS recall, so it'd be good to get it better. Thanks to usual suspects, Matt, our mentor, Colin Rice, for your insight on Django, Goldschmidt, and Morphy. Thanks again.
On the info page, the RIN had like a scroller. Does that increment the RIN by 1?
Yes. Okay. Yes, it does. In Django 1.5, if you made it an integer field, it didn't have that little up and down thing. In 1.6, it just like, oh yeah, we're going to put these little cutesy little things on there for. It does have a limit though for 9 digits, but yeah, I don't really know. Thank you.
Maybe one more question. We got the next team. Who's up next? Go to the context switch. One more question.
You may want to change the testing username and password.
Yep.
Something that's not so easy to guess.
It's okay. Thank you. Sure.
I think we all know what the password is.